Welcome to Sarlaccus Museums in picturesque Mänttä, Finland. Tervetuloa Serlachius museoihin kuvan kauniiseen Mänttään. I am Sara, your host tonight. Hei, olen Sara. Today we are celebrating the Irish artist Trish Morrissey's show AUTOFICTIONS, her first solo exhibition in Finland. Tänään juhlistamme irlantilaisen taiteilija Trish Morrisseyn AUTOFICTIOT-näyttelyä, joka on muuten hänen ensimmäinen yksityisnäyttelynsä Suomessa. Welcome to our virtual opening. Tervetuloa virtuaaliavajaisiimme. First, let me tell you about this place. We are now in the Sarlaccus Museum Gustav, the former head office of the forest combine G.A. Serlachius Limited. The museum honors the name of Gustav, who was one of the pioneers in the Finnish paper industry. This beautiful building was turned into a museum in 2003, and it has ever since hosted many great exhibitions. Olemme nyt Serlaccus Museo Gustavissa, joka oli metsäyhtiö G.A. Serlachius Oyn entinen pääkonttori. Tämä kaunis rakennus muutettiin museoksi 2003. And now you will hear welcoming words from our museum director Pauli Sivonen. Ja seuraavaksi kuulette museon johtaja Pauli Sivosen tervehdyksen.
Dear friends, hyvät ystävät, my name is Pauli Sivonen and I'm working here in Mänttä as the director of Sarlaccus Museums. Mun nimi on siis Pauli Sivonen ja mä oon Sarlaccus museoiden johtaja täällä Mäntässä. Trish Morrissey on Sarlacciukselle vanha tuttu. Me tehtiin hänen kanssaan yhteistyötä jo 2015, kun hän otti osaa meidän ryhmänäyttelyyn, jonka kuratoi silloin Ville Lenkkäri. Hän teki silloin meille tämmöisen teoksen, jossa hän tutki meidän arkistosta vanhoja valokuvia ja niiden perusteella loi sitten omia valokuviin tallentuneita maailmojaan. Nyt tämä AUTOFICTIOT, tämä näyttely on paljon laajempi hanke, eli se esittelee Trishin taidetta viimeiseltä 20 vuodelta ja on siis tätä kautta retrospektiivi. I just told that Trish is actually an old friend of us. We've worked with her already in 2015 when she took part in one of our group shows, and we've been following her career ever since. And now this is a retrospective presenting her work from last 20 years. On todella harmi, että me ei voitu kutsua teitä kaikkia avaamaan tätä näyttelyä. Se johtuu tietenkin nykyisistä kokoontumisrajoituksista ja COVID-tilanteen epävarmuudesta. Mutta toivottavasti pääsette itse paikalle myöhemmin. Eli tämä näyttely on täällä Mäntässä auki vuoteen 2023 tammikuuhun. Of course, we would like to have invited you all to Mänttä to celebrate the opening of Trish Morrissey's wonderful new exhibition, AUTOFICTIONS. But unfortunately, the current uncertain COVID situation and the restrictions here in Finland did not make this possible. But we are very happy to greet you with this video, this short video, kind of online vernissage of the show, and thus also introduce the exhibition for you. Of course, hoping that you will come here later yourself. And here, of course, I would like to thank the artist Trish Morrissey for this wonderful cooperation. And our sincere thanks also go to the curator, Kate Best, and Joe Lanyon, who was helping Trish and Kate with the video works. And I'm also happy to thank all the writers of the catalogue that we produced for this exhibition. So thank you again, Kate and Joe, and thank you, Lucy Scouter. And thank you, Trish, for giving your full attention for this book. Ja kiitän myös Hanna Karppasta ja Ville Karppasta ja Minna Luomaa kustannusyhtiö Parusissa tästä hienosta katalogista, joka tehtiin tätä näyttelyä varten. Ja kiitos julkaisun kirjoittajille. Tuhannet kiitokset kaikille yhteistyökumppaneille, teosten lainaajille ja tietenkin meidän omalle Serlachius-tiimille, joka on tämänkin näyttelyn Tarja Väätäsen johdolla pystyttänyt. Kiitos kaikille. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauli. Next we will go to see the exhibition and hear what Trish Morrissey got to say about it. Seuraavaksi piipahdamme näyttelyssä.
The exhibition is titled AUTOFICTIONS, and it is a survey show of 20 years of work. The first work in the exhibition is from 2001, and the most recent work is this year, 2022, so actually slightly over 20 years. Autofiction, even though it's a term that's normally used in literature, adapts to photography and film very well, because particularly with my work, I'm weaving fact and fiction. It's sort of historical fiction almost, as well as contemporary fiction, where I'm using the essence of me and the essence of my life intertwined with the lives of others, and it's hard to know where one begins and one ends, and what is fact and what is fiction, and what is made up. First work that appears in the exhibition is a series of photographs called 7 Years, in which I performed a fake family album with my sister and I, playing all the parts. We play aunts, uncles, cousins, men, women, and children. A 35-year-old as I was then, getting away with playing a 7-year-old, just about. And then we move on to photographs of me with other families, where I'm in the series Front. I approached families on the beach and asked if I could be part of their family for a moment, for a photograph. So the idea of the border and the boundary around a family is broken through my intervention. First of all, breaking the code of the beach, where you can never speak to somebody even though they are, they're right close to you, and everyone becomes a voyeur and an exhibitionist at the same time, and yet you kind of try and ignore them. And so by breaking through that barrier, I was crossing that invisible boundary. So using the beach as a sort of metaphor for this crossing the boundary of the family. And the women who I replaced in the photograph were very generous and allowed me to be with their family while they became the photographer. Working with archives has been a really incredible experience, and mostly through luck. I've been asked to be artist in residence at the Bohuslän Museum in Sweden, and also at the Sarlaccus museums here, which was my first experience of visiting Mänttä and working with the museum. I was here at the invitation of Ville Lenkere, who was putting together an exhibition of work by 10 international artists made over a 2-week period here in the town, and then exhibited it 6 months later at the Museum Josta. This is an interesting story because I had been through early motherhood, and I had kind of taken myself away from my career for quite a number of years. So when I got the invitation to come to Mänttä and make work, I felt very unmatched fit, if you know what I mean. I felt like I wasn't ready, and I kept trying to put it off. But with the encouragement of Ville, who actually suggested in the end that I had a look at the photographs that were in the archive that aren't publicly available, and perhaps I could find inspiration from that. And so that turned out to be incredibly fortuitous. I just, over several evenings, I poured and poured through the work online, and every so often a certain picture of a certain person would sort of almost hit me viscerally, and I felt a connection coming through the screen. But then it was much more difficult to sort of get a coherent series that I could then work with. But eventually I selected 10 photographs to reenact. And in that way I felt I could get sort of closer to the town itself. I had to sort of think and research and plan and really feel into the photographs, really feel into the work. So, you know, I've made all the costumes with Mark Harriet, who I work with in the UK, who makes costumes, and also Taria, who is from the museum, helped with some of the costumes and wigs as well. And the series became 10 people in a suitcase because I literally brought 10 people's identities in my suitcase, which was about sort of, I don't know, 40 kilos in weight. First film I made was 2004, and it was a film that came about because of my frustration with the limitations of photography. I was trying to make a photograph that was about my mother's wedding dress, which she'd obviously worn in her wedding in 1958. And I wore the same dress to my Deb's ball, which is a bit like a sort of American prom, although a lot more basic, in the 1980s. And I just decided to film my mum and myself dancing to a big band, Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade, which was her favourite dance hall track when she was courting my father. It was done single shot twice, if you know what I mean, so my mum dancing and me dancing, single point of view, and the music put on afterwards. It was very rudimentary. But it somehow worked, and it still means a lot to me, that film. And then over the sort of the next few years, I made 3 more single point of view, almost single shot. There's another film, Ave Maria Karaoke film, about how the pregnant body becomes possessed by society. Society owns the pregnant body, and the pregnant woman is no longer herself. So that film is kind of an allegory to that. And then I also made a film called Ideas of Refinement, Principles of Taste, while on residency in Melbourne, Australia. Again, a single shot, single point of view film. And then from there, it's kind of taken off again. And now I find that I'm thinking of films more than I am thinking of photography.
Breathe in me, Holy Spirit, that my thoughts may all be holy.
My work kind of is on a thread, if you like. It's on a balancing point between being quite funny at times, but also quite psychologically disturbing at other times. So I kind of purposely, I'm on that little thread, and I'm also on a slight thread of it being slightly embarrassing to the viewer, maybe a little bit cringe. You want to look away, you might want to look back, and then, so I'm kind of using humour as a way to entice people in a lot of the time. And then I'm hoping that when they stay and look a bit longer, they get a little bit of a psychological disturbance when they have this uncanny feeling of things not being quite what they seem and not being quite right, to varying degrees throughout the work, I think. So I do like my work to have an entertainment element to it. It's not all sort of gloom and doom, even though the recent work, sort of pandemic-based, does feel quite dark, particularly Self-Portrait with Two Snails, where I am sort of passively allowing snails to sort of slime all over my face and over my eyes. So I suppose if I was to think what would I say to entice people to come to the exhibition, it would be that there is quite a lot of humour, and it is an entertainment and it's enjoyable, but hopefully you'll come away with you know, a sort of a feeling of things not being quite right, that maybe you'd like to come back and view it again and see it another time.
Thank you, Trish. The exhibition AUTOFICTIONS opens for the public tomorrow. We welcome all visitors near and far to visit this and many other interesting exhibitions we have here in Mänttä in our 2 Sarlaccus Museums. AUTOFICTIOT-näyttely avautuu yleisölle huomenna. Me toivotamme kaikki tervetulleeksi tähän ja moniin muihin mielenkiintoisiin näyttelyihimme. Thank you for attending and have a pleasant evening. Kiitos osallistumisesta ja mukavaa iltaa.